Hey guys, it's TYTSports, Ben Mankewicz, Michael Shure, Cenk, Uygur with you. Turks and Jerks of the Week. We focus now on our Jerks of the Week. Michael?
Well, first of all, the Jerks of the Week are always the people that play on Thursday because we forget about them and they can't be the Turks of the Week. So I think all season long, they're the Jerks of the Week. So the Ravens and the Steelers, total jerks. My Jerks of the Week this week, first, Gus Bradley for a variety of reasons, but the first of which is it's time for the coach of the Jaguars to play Blake Bortles. I think the starting of Chad Henne, other coaches have done that before in NFL history, started Chad Henne, and it's never really worked out. And if he's trying to save his job and his franchise and his team, I think it's time that, do you not agree that Blake
100%. Couldn't possibly agree more. What are you doing? You have a terrible team with some interesting young players, a quarterback who had a great camp that you spent a high #1 pick on. Let's go.
This is the time to use him. You're not winning the Super Bowl this year. My other jerk of the week is Marty Morninhwig. Marty Morninhwig is a offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, and there was a play at the end of that Jets game, which many of you have probably seen, where the Jets were down in Green Bay by only a touchdown, which boggles the minds of many. But they ran an amazing play. Touchdown to Jeremy Curley. It was 4th and 4. Yep. Geno Smith threw it post left side of the end zone. An acrobatic catch by Curley. It was a fantastic play. No touchdown, because somebody had called timeout on the Jets. Rex Ryan adamantly on the sideline saying, "I didn't call timeout. I didn't call timeout. Who called timeout? Who called timeout?" Turns out maybe it was Marty Morninhwig. Now Sheldon Richardson, my orthodontist and a player for the Jets, so came out and said that in fact he was the one who called timeout because he saw Morninhwig attempting to call timeout. Nobody hearing him. He thought he'd do him a solid and do it. The disorganization is the jerk of the week.
It's the Jets.
Yeah.
It's the Jets. It's the Jets. It's the Jets. It's the Jets. It's the kind of thing they do. They look pretty talented.
And that's what happens when you hire Marty Morninhwig.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was so clearly over his head as a head coach. And here, what we're given to believe, first of all, the Jets didn't let the media talk to Morninhwig, so players were left to answer these questions, and they're like, I don't know, I thought we had a good play, I didn't hear the timeout, and then they got the first down, and then the drive ended 3 plays later when they couldn't convert on the next 4th down. So the Morninhwig apparently was trying to call timeout, and then changed his mind with 4 seconds on the play clock. And just the idea of an offensive coordinator being like, timeout, 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 why is somebody listening to me? Timeout. Wait, it's fine, no timeout, no timeout, no timeout. Like, so it is said Sheldon Richardson was like, Jesus, I got to help this guy out. Right. And normally, I guess, assistant coaches apparently aren't allowed to call timeout in the NFL, which is strange, but the referees can't hear who's calling the timeout every time. Yep. And normally, Morninhwig has the power with the Jets to call timeout when Rex Ryan hears him in his headset, then he'll call the timeout. So anyway, there may have been a valid reason to call the timeout, but in the end, of course, because it's the Jets, the kind of thing that has literally never happened to the Patriots or Steelers ever in recorded history, they didn't lose a touchdown because they didn't know how to call a timeout.
Yeah, well, look, that's what happens when you hire Morninhwig, who's, as a head coach, was a legendary loser. So, I mean, loser organizations hire losers. I know, I'm the bad guy. But I say it in the context of sports because that's what it is.
But, I mean, he was, the loser head coaches are the assistants who have been really good assistants who just don't know how to be head coaches. So he's not a loser as a coordinator. Enough people from Philadelphia to Green Bay to San Francisco down to New York think that he's a capable coordinator. He should never be allowed to call a timeout, and by rule, as Ben said, he's not allowed to call a timeout.
Right. Well, if your offensive coordinator is so untrusted that you don't trust him to call timeouts, you got an issue. But that leads to my jerk of the week, okay? So first of all, just quick honorable mention to Tom Coughlin, because he's beaten that team into the ground. Like, he's got 2 Super Bowls, bless his heart. He's done a good job in that regard, obviously. But Tom Coughlin led teams get tired. It happened to the Jaguars. It's happening to the Giants. I think that he's just over-disciplinarian. That team is beat. Okay, anyway. But my jerk of the week is Norv Turner. Now, again, breaking all records, okay, for a number of reasons. The smaller one is this whole idea of, I'm watching that Patriots-Vikings game, and the Patriots run a play, and they're like, oh, Josh McDaniel taking one out of the Norv Turner page. But they know Norv Turner anything. Norv Turner is not a thing. His legendary offense in that same game, Minnesota got 7 frickin' points against the Patriots, who let up 1,000,000 points to the Dolphins the week before, right? There is no Norv Turner thing. It doesn't exist.
There is a Norv Turner.
No, there isn't.
There's no Matt Castle thing.
No, I know, and Adrian Peterson's out, etc. But
Well,
Norv,
that's
the smaller reason. Okay, the larger reason is because of how well San Diego did. Okay. You take Norv Turner out of the equation, all of a sudden Antonio Gates at the age of 84 is a legend. He's scoring 8 touchdowns a game.
Ryan Matthews is hurt. They should sign LT.
Okay.
Give him a chance to play for Mike McCoy.
But look at what he did to that poor team. They had LaDainian Tomlinson, they had Phillip Rivers, and one of the things I'm most proud of, honestly, in football is that in the midst of all the losing San Diego did with that incredibly talented team, when everybody was calling Phillip Rivers a loser, I said, no, Phillip Rivers is actually a pretty good player and might even be a winner. It's just that Norv Turner has infected him. Get that cancer out of there, right? They removed the cancer. All of a sudden, Phillip Rivers is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Antonio Gates is going back to the Hall of Fame for a second time.
So I sent him a text because the Chargers were driving for the first score of the game, and they fumbled the snap.
Oh, yes.
And Phillip Rivers fell on it, and they kept the ball, and they eventually kicked a field goal on that drive. And I sent Cenk a text. I was like, if Norv Turner's the coach, Phillip Rivers doesn't recover that fumble. Like, I don't know how that exactly works, but they wouldn't have, and they would have lost the ball.
That's right.
So, since 2008, Phillip Rivers has thrown for over 25 touchdowns, and almost every single one of those seasons has also thrown for over 4,000 yards, save 2012, where he threw for 3,600.
Yeah, he had a bad year that one year. What's to me about Rivers, I don't know whether he's lost weight or not, but his movement around the pot, he used to be Dan Marino-like. But even yesterday, as the Seahawks are running after him and play after play, he's not going to gain 40 yards on the ground, but he moved enough to keep a play alive. Yeah. And he seems, I don't know whether he lost 20 pounds or changed his footwork, but he seems much more nimble, which makes him better. And one of those touchdown passes to Gates was a result of him moving in a way that I don't think he could have moved before.
So, final 2 things on this. Look, Norv Turner got all this hype for what he did with the Cowboys as an offensive coordinator. You know that he was only there 91 to 93? That's it. You know who caused the Cowboys to be great 91 to 93? Jimmy frickin' Johnson. Okay.
Jerry Jones.
Okay, yeah, right. And the greatest offensive line I have ever seen in my life, and Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman, and
Michael Irvin.
And Michael Irvin. Not stupid-ass Norv Turner. Stop hiring him. He had nothing to do with it. There is no genius. In fact, he's an idiot. And look, without him, what happened? San Diego beats the invincible Seattle Seahawks. Easily. If you look up Norv Turner, one of the things that Google brings up first is Norv Turner PTSD. Okay.
I think we created that.
I think we might have,
yeah.
and it's true.
Yeah. I don't. It's an interesting point. And by the way, Jay Novacek, just saying, valuable part of those teams.
Yeah, Jay Novacek was, and also who was the special teams coordinator with the great hair?
Oh, with the gray hair, yeah.
Joe Joe Avazano.
Joe Avazano.
Yeah, Joe Avazano.
Okay, so. Again, fun stuff happening here. So I have 2 coaches to put in this. The Atlanta football Falcons were never in that game at all. They were totally outclassed. Inevitably, we learned something about the Bengals, which is that they're okay. At the bare minimum, that's a pretty good team. But they were down 24-10 with 4.5 minutes to go on, I think, about their own 15, 16-yard line. It was 4th and 10. I got it. There's 4.5 minutes to go. You're behind 24-10. What's your big fear about losing 27-10 or 31-10 as opposed to 24-10? He punted.
Yeah.
Like
Caldwell did the same thing.
The fact of the matter is, down 24-10 with the ball with 4.5 minutes to play in the history of the NFL, teams have won. Teams have tied that game and won in overtime. And if you manage to get yourself together and score in 2 minutes, they had all 3 timeouts and then recover an onside kick or use your timeout. But you can't not have the ball with 4.5 minutes to go, down 24-10. So you don't complete it. So Matt Ryan throws an incompletion, and the Bengals take over on the 15-yard line. Yes, you've lost. But you lost with the punt, too, because the yard line doesn't matter. This is not a yardage game anymore. Right. It's possession. And how I thought Mike Smith had figured this out. I don't think he has. And so he's an easy call for me. And he's going to keep showing up here because he doesn't understand the clock or possession, that kind of thing. And then secondly, John Fox, who I think we all sort of like. But John Fox is a conservative coach who has the players to play unconservatively because he has Peyton Manning and an incredible offensive line and an improving defense. But when the Chiefs drove inside the 10, down 24-17 in that game, as that clock got around a minute, he had all 3 timeouts left. Look, the Broncos knocked a pass down and they won the game, but the Chiefs were not going to run out of time. The Chiefs were going to run out of downs, which is exactly what happened. It was 4th down. If they had run a ball, if there hadn't been as many incomplete passes, he blew an opportunity he had 3 timeouts. It doesn't make any difference. If you stop them, you win the game no matter what.
Yeah.
The game's over if you stop them. It doesn't matter whether there's 40 seconds or a minute 40. But you have Peyton Manning, and maybe you don't want to go to overtime. Maybe you want to give Peyton Manning a minute to play and try to win that game. And for him not to call for crying out loud, Phil Simms said, I think John Fox should be calling timeouts here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's proof. Proof if Phil Simms has figured it out and is willing to criticize you, because I'm fairly certain that Phil Simms understands everything about football. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like criticizing people in any way, but he even suggested Fox should call the timeout. It worked out. Nobody's going to get on John Fox for it, but you got to call those timeouts on defense.
Yeah, Phil Simms, I texted this to you during one of the games yesterday, said something to the effect of, that's as good a play as I've seen all season.
Yeah. It was like in the.
He said that in the early games of week 2.
Yeah, in the first quarter of the early games of week 2.
That's as good a play as I've seen all season. Oh, really, Phil? That's great. Honorable jerk mention quickly. Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the 49ers, 3 runs inside the 10-yard line. Once again, probably first and goal from the 11. They did it in the Super Bowl and it didn't work, and it didn't work last night.
Two small notes on what Ben said. Caldwell did the same thing in the Carolina game. Punted in the 4th quarter with time running out. You're losing the game 21-7. What difference does it make? Let's go. You got to try to win. And they're not trying to win. They're trying not to get embarrassed, which is a telltale sign of a shitty coach. Yeah. And then finally on John Fox, he will lose in the playoffs. He always loses in the playoffs, and he will lose again because he's too conservative. No one makes bigger comebacks against anybody but John Fox. Like the minute he tightens up, comeback. We
saw it in week 1, and we saw it here. It's just you got to call those timeouts on defense. There's no downside. There's only a possibility that if they score, you have a chance to win the game. Those are our jerks of the week. Check TYT Sports for our Turks of the week. Thanks for watching.